Welcome back to War Thunder and welcome to the tank review for the Panther II. If you're looking for a German medium tank that combines both the firepower of the Long 88 that you know from such tanks as, for example, the Ferdinand, the Yak Panthers or the King Tigers, together with the shape of a Panther, which is rather unique looking, together with a mobility that is equal or even better to that of the T-44-100. The Panther II might just be your tank. This tank is a joy to play. I personally love this tank. It is my favorite medium tank in the game currently, and while there are other medium tanks that are a bit more unique, for example the Chieftain, this tank just works, and it works from the very first battle. It doesn't require any particularly fancy tactic. It just is there and dishes out the punishment and also can take it. I will give you a full rundown on the statistics of this tank. I will compare it to its main competitors on the battlefield. I will give you tips and tricks how to play it, and if you have no interest in playing this tank or have trouble in dealing with it, I will give you also a few tips and tricks how to deal with it effectively on the battlefield. This tank is really good. There is one thing though that I regret, and that is that I did never put a talisman on it. This tank would be such a good grinder if you get your hands on it and have never spent any money previously on any kind of talismans or premium tanks. This might be just your playstyle if you're a true medium lover. Before we begin with the actual tank review, let me say a few things about the Panther II. First of all, as you might have heard, I really love and enjoy this tank. It is such a great tank to play. It is also easy on the eyes. I mean, look at it. It's a Panther. I mean, Panthers have the best tank design when looking at it, in my opinion. Together with the King Tigers, but you know, that's personal preference. There are a few things. First of all, this long 88mm, we will come back to it in a moment, has no muzzle brake, but it doesn't affect the performance at all. And the armor has also increased in comparison to other Panthers. The turret is practically the same as on the Panther F. The problem that I have with it is this infrared light. I think it's very good modeled. It's looking really cool. The problem is when you're working ridge lines, which you actually can with this tank, more on this in a moment, this will so often give away your position more than those, you know, antennas, which, you know, are hated by all light and medium tank drivers, as you know, they give away your position if somebody has sharp eyes. So I think that's it. Let's begin with the armor. And the upper plate is 100mm thick, sloped backwards at 55 degrees, and the effective thickness ranges from 180 down to 130mm, depending at the angle. But you also can angle it a little bit from the side, and you can see you might just bounce a lot of shells. Even when straight on, the upper plate is capable of ricocheting sometimes 122mm Russian shells, British 20-pounder solid shots, as well as Russian 100mm APHE shells. Not so much on the lower plate. It's just 60mm thick, and the effective thickness goes down to somewhere between 100mm and 170, depending on the angle. But you also can angle it, but not so much the lower plate. It is as well sloped backwards at 55 degrees. Now obviously there is this machine gun port, but you're taking your chances. I do not recommend to shoot there. Try to shoot the turret. And there are a few things that we have to talk about. The turret front itself is 120mm thick, and the effective thickness is around about 130mm due to a 20-degree angle. But in the middle of this rather flat, big front target, so to speak, sits an enormous gun mantle, and this is like a black hole for everything that gets fired at it. This is your chance to ricochet something or to take less damage. And especially when you're a little bit angled with your Panther and you wiggle your turret a little bit, we will talk about this in a moment. It's rather challenging with the 11 degrees of turret rotation speed. They either might hit the gun mantle or the side cheeks of the turret, which are heavily angled when you look at it from the front. But two weak spots. The rangefinders actually count for the damage model, just 60mm stick from the front, so half of what you have for the turret front. And also we have the cupola, and technically it is a thinner target with around about 130mm, but you know, it's a small target, it's rounded, and you know, you're taking your chances. About the turret front, it is basically the same design principle as on the King Tigers with their Schmalturms. And the problem is, in comparison to Russian tanks which have a weak spot area that is more horizontally orientated, the Germans have a vertical orientated weak spot line. Basically, the problem that I have is that even if your enemy has a non-upgraded gun, the spread of a gun is more or less up and down on the vertical more than to the left or right. So it's easier to hit this weak spot area than, for example, the T-44-100's turret front. Just saying, it's just an experience. Now, what about the side armor of the Panther? We can see it is 60mm thick, which is, you know, rather thick for a Panther. And, you know, you have additional interlocking road wheels, or, you know, those track supporters, together with some Schützen, just 5mm thick. The upper side is sloped backwards a little bit, effective thickness around 70mm with some additional tracks, as well as the turret. Even on the rear on the hull is 40mm thick, and while angled, you know, it's not really that challenging. Although I have bounced some surprising shots, but you know, irregularities. Then both the engine deck and the turret front and the turret roof are 30mm thick. That prevents you from getting splashed by most high explosive shells, but rockets and bombs and heavy machine cannon fire will still go through, as well as HE from the caliber of 120mm and above. So the M103s, the KV2s of course, and you know, the IS-2 series, or every Russian tank with a 122mm gun has high explosive that can splash through this. Just mentioning it. But you know, it's theoretically possible, but most people shoot with AP because, you know, it's makes more sense. Then let's have a look at the interior. And we have the transmission in the front. And it will absorb a lot of shrapnels that get caused by the penetration of the lower hull. So your crew actually might survive it a bit better if, for example, there wouldn't be any transmission. But the engine, together with the fuel tanks in the back, love to blow up. I don't know why, but they seem to blow up more regular than other tanks. Then we have two good things. First of all, we have 5 crew members, of which 2, the driver and the machine gunner, sit in the lower hull in the front. And we have the gunner, the commander, and the loader as turret crew. Please note that the gunner actually sits pretty low in the turret, like on the Panther F, I guess. So you actually have to, when you want to take out the gunner, you actually have to aim here. So in this area to actually take it out when you don't have APHE shells, like for example the British. Otherwise you just will take out the commander, and when this gun, you know, fires back, it's not a very pleasant experience, trust me on that. So that gives you not just the opportunity to survive a turret penetration and lose all 3 turret crew members, but you also can carry on, and the reload is not that terrible with just 2 crew members in comparison to other, especially Russian tanks. And with the crew replenishment module, you actually can go back into a cap circle owned by your team and do the crew replenishment module. You then have 3 crew members again ready for the combat and have nearly the same combat effectiveness as if you would have freshly spawned. The bad thing is you have 50 rounds of ammunition of this long 88, and they are literally everywhere in the tank. I recommend you to just take out 30 rounds at most. You can experiment a little bit, and you will remove all those vertical ammo racks. So this, and also this in the bottom. So just the ammo racks on the side will remain. And this is, by the way, a very good tip, especially for British tankers. If you have APDS, just shoot above the tracks, the hull above the tracks, and you will hit the ammunition rack, because they will get emptied last. And so you have a very good chance of one-shotting this tank. Otherwise you have a pretty hard time of taking it out in one shot. Yeah, then I think that's it with the armor and X-ray view. Let's talk about the mobility. And to make it short, this is not a Panther, this is a racing machine. We have for its 47 tons, which is just half a ton faster than the Panther F, for example, a 900 horsepower engine compared to the Panther F's 600 horsepower engine, which gives this tank a very, very good 19.1 horsepower per ton ratio, which is just surpassed by the Leopard's 20.75. Also, the top speed goes up from the Panther F's 46 kilometers an hour to 54 kilometers an hour. And again, just the Leopard with its 65 kilometers and the T-44-100's 60 kilometers an hour are faster. What about the reverse speed? That was always the big weak spot of the Panther series. Well, you have a reverse speed of 14 kilometers. That is more than 4 times faster backwards than the Panther F's really bad -3 kilometers an hour. It is nearly as fast as the M46, 15 kilometers, faster than the Tiger II H's 11 kilometers, and the T-44-100's 9 kilometers, and also the Centurion Mark 10's 12 kilometers an hour, and just gets surpassed by the M46 15 kilometers and the Leopard's fantastic 25 kilometers an hour backwards. All tanks in comparison, with the exception of the T-44-100, have also neutral steer, so you can turn on the point, which is rather nice. So the horsepower to ton ratio is really great. The top speed, the maneuverability with the mobility combined just gives this tank so much more flexibility compared to other medium tanks. It feels more like you drive a tuned Panzer IV and not a Panther. But you have even better protection than a Panther F, at least hull-wise. The turret is basically the same. So what about the gun handling? Well, first of all, the suspension seems to be smooth, and especially when you go a bit slower, you actually can reliably hit targets on the move and one-shot them because of what your gun fires. More on this in a moment. But let's compare it with the reload speed, which is actually mediocre. 8.5 seconds for an ace crew is a bit longer than the Panther F's 6.7 and the Centurion Mark 10's 6.7 seconds. It is also longer than the 7.1 seconds on the Leopard with its 10.5 L7A3 gun, but it is by over half a second faster than the M48's 90mm M3A1 cannon, which I don't understand, but okay, and the T-44-100's D10T cannon with 10.5 seconds. That's a 2-second longer reload, which makes quite a difference, to be honest. The shell capacity, as I mentioned, is with 50 shells overall on the rather low side. but it is just the T-44-100 which is much worse in this department with just 35 shells. All other tanks have something between 60, 70, and in the Panther F's case up to 82 shells. The turret rotation speed is what really hinders this tank from being the absolute dominator. We have a turret rotation speed of just 11 degrees, and that is just half of what you get from the Leopard, the T-44-100 and the M46. Just the Centurion Mark 10 with 16.1 and the Panther F with its 13.6 seconds have a comparable turret rotation speed, although 11 degrees is really not that fast. So you have to actually think forward where to point your gun. That certainly helps. So what about the gun depression and elevation? Well, the elevation is the worst with just 15 degrees, but it's not that important. It's still good enough. But the 8 degrees is kind of average. Yes, the Leopard with its 9 degrees and the Centurion Mark 10 and M46 both with their minus 10 degrees are better, but it is still 5 degrees better than the very bad 3 degrees of gun depression from the T-44-100. So you might just get an idea that this tank is really, in the worst case, average, and in all other departs actually plays in the top league, so to speak. And here we come to the really great part, what the ammunition is. And that is, of course, the Panzergranate 39-43. It has a muzzle velocity of 1,000 meters with a high explosive filling with a TNT equivalent of just under 110 grams of TNT, which is mostly enough to deal with any opponent with a side shot, which you should aim for as a medium tank, by the way. More on this in the tactic section. And 235 millimeters of penetration are more than enough to deal with any opponents that you come across, except if you get up-tiered and you have to face the Russians. Then it's pretty tricky to make good results when engaging Russian tanks from the front. But this is your stock shell. You don't have to research it, which makes this tank so enjoyable to play, in my opinion. The next shell would be the Panzergranate 40-43, which is an APCR shell. While this shell has a much higher muzzle velocity by 20%, 1,200 meters per second, and has a, on paper, higher penetration value with 270 millimeters at point blank range, and even over 200 millimeters at 1.5 kilometers. I do not recommend you to take this shell. It works very bad against sloped armor. It works also not very good in the damage output compartment. You have a very narrow damaging coin when you actually penetrate. And also this shell is rather expensive. It's not the heat shell cost, you know, of, like, for example, on the Leopard, but, you know, it's just unnecessary. Likewise, the Hochladungsgranate 39, which is a heat shell, and I do not really understand why you actually can research this shell. It makes no real sense for me. Just 110 millimeters of penetration against at all distances. I don't know what this shell is good for, other than you know, to destroy destructible environment, where it is better than the very unremarkable Sprenggranate or high explosive shell. By the way, the heat shell and the Sprenggranate have both really low muzzle velocities of 600 and 820 meters per second. So you basically are good with the stock shell. What about the upgrades? Well, obviously parts, fire prevention system, horizontal drive is very important as you really struggle. Then your crew replenishment, and of course the adjustment of fire. Artillery support, the Hochladungsgranate, the Panzergranate, and also the rangefinder are not that important. Well, the rangefinder, if you really want to go for the long range sniping stuff, it's your personal preference. But but also the mobility upgrades are really worth it, especially the engine. Remember, please research the engine before you research the transmission, because the engine gives you combined the horsepowers that the filters and transmission together give you. Just remember that. Also, the suspension gives you a much smoother ride and allows you at lower speeds, if you manage to hold it at like 20 kilometers an hour, to really get in those shots. One more thing to mention, and that is the vertical gun control. The gun lifting and lowering speed is rather slow, and also, you know, if you try to brake, you really dump the tank into the ground, so to speak. So it takes precious seconds to give off a shot, but that is like that with many tanks, but it's a bit more with the Panther II. So this is why I mentioned the low speed accuracy. So you don't have to actually brake to a full stop to give an accurate shot. Train it, it's worth it when it works, trust me. So how to play this tank? Well, as I mentioned, it is a medium tank. It is very good in the mobility department. You have a good reverse gear. You have decent 8 degrees of gun depression. Your reload is decent. The damage output of the gun is really good. The penetration of the stock shell is really good. All you need, that is the stock shell. You know, just flank the enemy and try to hurt them really hard. And, you know, just go behind enemy lines. There is nothing more terrifying for Russian teams than to have a pair of Panther II sitting in the back and just killing them from behind or the side. Yeah, it's really good, and as you can see in the gameplay, this tank just rocks. So I think that's it. Let's move on with the gameplay. Finally, we are here in the realistic gameplay here on Port Novorossiysk. We have 3 cap circles, and I have to say that the spawn point for the Germans, or let's say for the northern team, is rather not so good. The southern team has a lot of cover, and it's their decision to actually go into the open field to duel it out at rather mid to long range. But for, let's say, the northern team, you actually have to go around. Obviously, you have to go to your cap circles, but there is a water and there are not many bridges, and it's time consuming not to go over the bridges, let's put it that way. So when you go over the southern bridge, you're open for a very long time to enemy fire, which is not so good. But on the other hand, I don't want always to have like always, you know, very symmetrical maps. They spoil the game fun a little bit for me. Now sadly I hit here the gun or the gun mantle from the side of a Walker Bulldog. I saw a T-44-100 whizzing by, but I couldn't stabilize my gun in time. This is what I meant about the suspension. Overall it's a bit smoother as on the Panthers, at least it feels like that, but you really have to learn to work with it. Now here I try to kind of angle it, and again you see the rather slow turret rotation speed. Now I try my best to get into position to get this T-44-100 out of here. He's really annoying, and also we have to get rid from the tanks from C. And I actually look for opportunity. Maybe I can snipe somebody here, but I'm not sure where to move. Like, you know, we're just 4 tanks in the front line. And it seems like he was dead. Did I not get the comment message? I don't know. Doesn't matter. So, now I have a good look at the middle cap circle at C. And I actually see... I see it. Do you see it? Yes. Now from this angle I penetrate, you know, like 9 out of 10 times, I guess. The Walker Bulldog is not known for its armor, of course, it's a light tank, but nevertheless. And I'm carefully trying to get my gun around there. Normally on those corners there are a lot of snipers, but not today it seems like. And then I see the gun barrel getting out, and I wanted to wait a little bit until he comes forward, but obviously this T-29 hesitated a little bit. This other one shows its lower plate, and I penetrate it, and just the driver. Sadly, the ammunition didn't blow up. Those shots really showed a difference between a German long 88 and a Russian 122. I'm pretty sure with a long 88 you rarely blow them up from this kind of angle, but with the Russian 122 you mostly blow them up. I don't know why nobody speaks about this, but with the Russian 122 you can one-shot Yak Tigers from the front. That was an unlucky bounce, by the way. But I got a teamwork for it. So I'm jockeying here for position, and look at this AAA. Get a critical hit into him, and he overturns me, and I get help by the tar, who actually snipes the AAA vehicle to help out a tank. Close air support. Yes, literally. So, jokes aside, we are here trying to get the cap circle. Tickets are bleeding down. We have to do something. Obviously, I have to repair. I saw the combat of the Tiger and the two T-29s, and I tried to help out the Tiger. This time, I snipe him with the lower plate. This time, the long 88 flies through into the ammunition rack and blows him up. And another one into the turret of the second T-29, sadly not killing it. The T-29 is, in a short summary, the American King Tiger. Just not as pretty. Jokes aside. So, the second shell disappeared somewhere in the gun mantle. I must have hit some weird angling. I try another time my luck with the lower plate. Again, I kill the driver, and again, because of the angle, I don't detonate the ammunition rack. Now, there is already a healthy air battle going on, so we have some planes up, and funnily enough, the TAR 152C3 actually shut down the Russian premium D9. It was a fair fight, German versus German, right? And you can see, I'm actually, you know, this standoff is not what this tank is really made of, but this was the best result-orientated, you know, match that I could give you. There are a lot of, you know, fast-paced action scenes that I have recorded, but I hesitated to make a compilation out of it. Now I actually try to get into the cap circle as fast as possible. This is our chance. Now those two T-29s are gone, and this T-44 was dead. I'm not sure what hit me. It doesn't matter. I am currently decapping. I try to get into cover. Artillery strike on me. I try to repair. Yeah. But back to the footage, you saw one scene in the beginning where I took down 4 enemy tanks in quick succession. Oh god, bombs. Uh-oh. Yeah, at this point I was not really amused. Now I take my backup. As you could see, I actually earned a few points right there. Now I got these backups, you know, from numerous matches where, you know, Gaijin from time to time actually gifts you some of those backups. Normally you just can get them for golden eagles, so getting them for free is always nice. Now, in arcade I more or less collected them, or when there was a tank that I really did not like and I had a match that fitted the tank, so to speak, I used them. But most of the time I collected them. In realistic, however, matches play in the long run differently. I always try to survive in my first tank, and you know, sometimes you don't get enough spawn points together to spawn in a second tank, but it doesn't matter. And here you actually can see the really good maneuverability throughout all terrains, and the controllability of the tank it feels just so alive, you know. It's so good. I like it. I really like it. In my opinion, the Panther drives itself kind of like a light tank, but with the armor of a good medium tank, or the good armor of a medium tank. And as I mentioned, and as you will see later on, spoiler alert, the survivability also kicks in. This tank can take damage that, for example, the Leopard can't take, or other nations' medium tanks just can't tank or take or whatever. And I'm not, you know, talking about the armor. I'm talking about when the shell goes into the inside of the tank. I heard some news that apparently the Panther II is one of the most played tanks currently in the game, or the most played tanks, and I can understand why. It's fast, it's mobile, it has decent armor, it has a powerful gun that actually fits more a medium tank than it does a heavy tank. But you know, it works really well on the heavy tank as well. But at this point I was really pissed. The AAA actually rammed me into the shell of the enemy tank. And denied me the clean shot. So I was not amused, but I survived. I lost no crew members. They're a bit injured, but you know, they will carry on, at least for now. And then I had the double repair. This is a feature that I do not understand. What's the sense of this? You know, I want everything repaired. What does it help me if I interrupt, you know, if I have the track finished but the engine is not okay? It makes sense in arcade, because after 10 seconds after the damage event, so to speak, you get a red engine back with a third of the horsepower, something like that. So you actually can limp into cover and then continue repair. So, but in realistic, you know, it makes no sense. And this would be like on my wish list to Gaijin. Please change that, you know. It's not really fixing, it's changing. And then I saw it. I go a little bit on, and this time the Russian fuel tanks blow up. Thank you very much. Justice is served. And then I reversed. I saw the tracers incoming. I know this guy. And this, without the reverse gear of the Panther II, I would have died. I would have not been able to get out of the bombing area, so to speak, with the other tank. By the way, this is my 5th kill, so that's the ace done. Granted, I died once, but ace is ace. And the AAA, you know, just cost me a track repair. That's okay. That's okay. Now, I'm not quite sure what to do right now. C is not captured yet, but I don't like to go back into the open. I wanted to secure the vicinity, but then the King Tiger next to me gets taken out. So what I do is I expected the T-44-100, which was recorded for the kill, to come around this corner, but he did not come around this corner. Those are, you know, the mind games where you actually use the map, where you use your knowledge of the map and certain tactics, prepare. Look at this. No ammunition in the turret, 2 crew members in the lower part of the hull. I survived. And the gun actually hasn't taken any damage. or well, the gun breach could have. It's difficult to see, you know, it's really small, the windows I can see. So I prepare for this corner, and I expect him to expect that I'm heavily damaged. I got my gunner back. There is a shell in the breach. I just have to pull the trigger. Yes, my turret ring is damaged, but you know, if he comes around this corner, he has a bad time. And then I hear it. Somebody is engaging this guy. He might be distracted. He might be distracted. And watch this. I just have 2 crew members left. Remember that. He tried to flank me again, and this tank, you know, that I absolutely don't know what it is. You know, it didn't see me, just ignored me. And look at this. I'm still reloading, by the way. I have to make this shot count. Hello, somebody home? Not anymore. That was the guy, by the way, from the B-29. Oh, that's a new ribbon, the double strike ribbon. I like that. Seems like he has bombed enough tanks to get back into a rather expensive premium tank. Yeah, and this is the frustrating part, by the way, about the Leopard. Now the Leopard also can, you know, survive with just 2 crew members, you know, turret penetration, so to speak. But it mostly dies to it. And then there is the damage output. The reload rates are more or less comparable, you know, if you compare it to, you know, bigger heavy tank guns, for example. So when you're down to 2 crew members, you need to make the shot count. You can't count on, you know, your reload being fast enough. Sometimes your reload is that long that you give the enemy enough time to get the crew back into position, turn around and shoot you back, which you try to avoid. I looked at the start count, by the way, and it seems like there are not many people left. So, what to do now? Now, it would be a little bit stupid to go for the spawn point. Enemy tanks have spawn protection, and they just can turn around and shoot you and disable you, reload and kill you, and you can't do anything about it. So I'm waiting here. And again, we have the glorious question, is this spawn camping? Well, there is nobody there. What should I do? Everything is captured by now. The rest of the enemies are in the sky, evidently. What can I do? Just wait. Now, at this point I thought the match would be over and nothing more spectacular would happen. I actually thought about, you know, stopping the recording here, or, you know, actually thought about the editing process. You know, weird German efficient minds, whatever. And then something occurred. One T-25 was killed, and also a Yak-9T was shot down. Does he have enough points to respawn? And you see the German tanks maneuvering all everywhere, you know, preparing for something. And then I see the tank moving by. It's some kind of AAA. He already is engaged by other German tanks. But it's always great to make the killing blow. That's my 8th kill. Now, the problem that I have very often with, for example, the Panther is that I a little bit like with the T-54-47, I'm getting a bit too confident. And I get myself into situation that I normally with another tank try to avoid. But I tried to test out the armor and, you know, the gun and the survivability. And it's different. Let's put it that way. And this guy has another Calliope. And I kill him again with one shot. That's my 9th kill. And actually now I'm interested. Could this become a double ace? Somebody had to spawn, in order to, in this case, spawn camp him or spawn kill him. But it was not to be. That was actually the end of the battle. So, let's have a quick look at the post-battle results. I just was third, which is kind of surprising for 9 kills and 2 assists and a lot of interaction, as you can see. Nearly 52,000 silver lines and 4,434 modification research points. And yeah, that was the battle, where I got my 750th kill. Most of them I did in arcade. And that unlocked me actually the winter camouflage and also the warbond mission. As you can see, I still collect them. So that's it for this tank review. I think the Panther is a fantastic all-round medium tank. Great mobility, great maneuverability, great firepower, decent protection, relatively good survivability for a medium tank. All around a very enjoyable vehicle with, not such a painful stock grind compared to other nations' tanks. What do you think about this tank? Is it too powerful? Doesn't it deserve that low battle rating? Should it be at 7.0 or even 7.3 as some people say, as it seems to be too overpowered for them? Let me know in the comment section. And don't forget to give this video a like if you did. Let me know if this tank review has helped you. Give me suggestions for more tank reviews. Therefore, please notice the links in the video description where you can vote for certain tanks. And yeah, subscribe if you want to see more. We will see each other on the battlefields of War Thunder.